All right. So for my analysis of product placement in TV series, I decided to watch the television series New Girl. New Girl is about a girl named Jessica Day who has found herself rooming with these three men because she misinterpreted a Craigslist ad looking for a roommate as being three women. And she ends up living with these men over a series of four, I think they're on their fifth season now. But in this series, I decided to start with the pilot episode so I could kind of track how product placement changes as you go throughout the seasons. The first pilot episode, there is one reference to Ford right here. One of the characters, Schmidt, he owns a Ford Flex car, and you can tell that it's a Ford Flex car, and it's only briefly seen. All the characters have Apple product phones, but you can't tell because the logo is covered. You can tell, but it's not explicitly shown with a logo. It was then interesting to go on to season 2, where in season 2, episode 1, I immediately noticed that the MacBook and iPhones used were all shown, their logos were shown and everything like that. There were no stickers over the MacBook Pros. There were several different kinds of MacBooks, and there were several Apple products, and you could see all of their logos this time. And flash forward 4 episodes, and Ford was also putting more into their product placement in the show because the very plot line of the show revolved around a friend of theirs who's a model and who is doing a car photo shoot with a new Ford Fusion. And this car, it was kind of just all revolving around the car, and she was doing a photo shoot with it, and she got sick, and so the main character, Jessica, had to go and do the photo shoot. And so the whole comedial part of this episode particularly, was about her tripping and not being able to really model well around the car. But at the same time, the directors were showing the car from all these angles, and it was a car commercial. The announcer was talking about how great this car was, even though it was in the background of her tripping and falling and being all the comedic relief in the show. It was there you saw a huge jump in season 1 to season 2, where this represents Apple is blue and Ford is green. And you can see that in season 1, Ford kind of put their money in it, and Apple just tried it out. And then as soon as they started using Apple products, Apple started using product placement there, and Ford really started betting on New Girl, as it was a show that did pretty well right off the bat. So then season 3 comes along, and season 3 is called Prince. It actually has the musical guest Prince on it. And this episode I decided to watch in addition to the other 2 I already had, because it received a lot of feedback because of its product placement over the internet. It was pretty well known for having a quite blatant product placement. And it was really interesting to watch because it did have a Cadillac Escalade, though the logo was covered. But then the Ford Focus, the logo was visible, and the driver actually turns around and says, "Excuse me, we're in a Ford Fusion, the best car ever made. It gets double the gas mileage, which means you go double as fast." And I remember watching this when I watched the seasons a long time ago and being like, what? That's super product placement, even though I never really paid attention to that. It was very, very apparent. And a lot of people were really bothered by it, but I thought it was really, really interesting that they would have it so blatantly out there and literally as if it was in commercial. And not only that, but just a couple episodes later, I wanted to kind of continue the study on how Ford was using this. And the character Schmidt, once again, the one with the Ford Flex in the beginning, he gets a new car, the Ford Fusion. And while he's in it, he has 2 of his friends get into his new car. And one says, "I'm digging the new Ford Fusion." And he mentions the car by name. And it shows the car with all its logos from all different angles while they're talking. And then their other friend that's in the car says, it's wow, it's so roomy. And then he says, "What? Well, I like this tree thing. What's it for?" And then Schmidt says, "It coaches you to drive more efficiently." And they kind of make fun of it. It fits into the role of the TV, but it is so much advertising. It's just very, very apparent that it is product placement. And so that was just really interesting how Ford kind of started betting on them, and then as they went, Ford just kept putting more and more money on them. Apple kind of stays consistent. They put product placement in a lot of different shows, and so once they kind of knew New Girl was going to go good, they just let them, they get to use their products, they use their logos, they all have all that provided. They had plenty of Apple products, but Apple kind of just thinks that's good, I think, and I think the demographic that Apple and was targeting has always kind of been that demographic, where New Girl, I think, is watched more by young adults, millennials, and things like that. Those people that kind of just, it's a huge, like, trendy TV show to watch. A lot of people that kind of just fit that mindset all watch that TV show. And so it definitely was their demographic. So I think it was just kind of simple for Apple to do that. I actually came across an article as I was preparing, and it's for sawcars.com, and it talks about how the Ford Fusion was an interesting demographic change for Ford because it was going for more younger and tech-savvy consumers. And those are kind of the consumers that are on New Girl. So you can kind of see Ford shifting there. Not necessarily with, like, my dad owns a Ford truck and he's not young or tech-savvy and millennial, for, like, certainly not any of those things. But it's interesting to see how Ford was kind of shifting towards those types of products. There were other almost things that I looked up to see if they were product placements, but they're actually invented products. One of the characters works in a bar, and there were a few beers mentioned by name, but I looked them up and they were actually just like fake products, fake companies made up, and things like that. So there were certainly other demographics in it, but the ones that were very, very apparent was Apple and Ford.